Hi, I'm Rich with insideHPC. We're here at SC12 in Salt Lake City. We're here at the adaptive booth with Brady. Let's start at the beginning, Brady. Who is adaptive computing and who do you help?
Adaptive computing is a workload management scheduler software company where we basically help people with optimizing their workloads, making sure they're cutting down on inefficiency of their hardware, so they can get more bang for their buck out of their hardware, deal with any of the political scenarios that are in sites, and really basically automate a lot of that work that you typically would have an IT administrator have to handle. So
you guys are kind of like the brains of the computing, making sure you keep all those expensive resources busy as possible?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Well, let's shift gears here. We had an announcement this week from Intel. The Intel Xeon Phi came out. This is a coprocessor that accelerates applications.
Yep.
For adaptive computing, do you guys have some kind of way to optimize workload management based on that platform? Or what's going on there?
Exactly. So we just announced our Moab HPC Suite 7.2 this last week. We're releasing it in the next week or so to the general public. And basically what we did was we put some functionality in there to auto-detect Xeon Phi boards. So right now they're shipping as PCIe boards. And we auto-detect those within our product stack through Torque up to Moab, and basically we report various metrics for scheduling purposes and allow you to specify mics, the architecture within Xeon Phi. So we've made it general enough that we're tackling Xeon Phi first, but as the market increases, in this architecture, and other competitors to Intel decide to take on this architecture, it'll be fairly easy for us to plug and play there.
Okay, so the adaptive software sees this. It doesn't even have its separate IP address or anything like that, does it? It sees it as a hardware resource within the server?
Yeah, so because it plugs into the PCIe slots, it's tied to the typical HPC compute node. So inside of our software, you have the typical generic resource metric, and so we just used our existing functionality to plug into that. And so you just specify a number of mics that you need per job or per node, depending on how you want to express that syntax, and the rest is taken care of by the system.
So can you get instrumentation and learn what's going on inside that thing
exactly.
to base your workload management?
Yep, exactly. So when we do the auto detection, there's about 10 to 15 different metrics that we gather, such as number of cores, temperature of the system, frequency, things of that nature that as people are starting to profile their applications to understand, hey, are my users really actually using these Xeon Phis, or are they just going dormant? We can easily pull that information and give that profile to system administrators.
Well, that's cool. There's 50 some cores in there, and you want to keep them busy. So very cool. Okay, so Brady, we want to shift gears here a little bit. Talk about dual domain scheduling for Cray systems.
Yeah.
Well, what's that about?
Yeah. So some of our largest customers are using Cray systems, and there's a unique scenario that we've run into time and time again, where our customers have non-Cray compute nodes that have large memory sets that need to be utilized, whereas Cray, typically with the shared memory and the way Crays are set up, can't handle some of those simulations that need that large memory set. So what we've done with Moab is we basically allow users to specify the ability to use non-compute Cray in a Cray system and allow them to talk to each other. So the applicability of this use case is in situations where you have a solid simulation that you can count on in the non-compute or non-Cray system, and the fluid simulation that Crays are typically known for, and allow them to have that feedback loop back and forth between them. And so that's really how we what we do there with the scheduling aspect is we make sure that those stay in sync. So historically, it would be a manual process, and the administrators would have to make sure their wall times were synced up. They'd have to add a bunch of business logic to their scripts to make sure it works, whereas now we take care of it for you.
Okay, you kind of make that more of a seamless environment. Awesome.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I got to ask you this question, Brady. I read about this thing called the Streamline RPM Experience, and could you put that in context for us? What's that about?
Yeah, so RPMs obviously have been around for a long time, and most of our customers are using Red Hat or CentOS or some variant of that. And so what we did is we looked at what configuration steps we can take out of the manual setup, put those in through the RPMs, and then set users up nicely for upgrades and eventually our patch management. So one thing that our customers continually tell us is that they're running thousands of jobs through their system. They don't want to have to clean their queues and do these other things that you typically have to do with workload management software. So this really is setting the tone of, a more easy to use, usable experience that will set us up nicely for patch management in the future.
Okay, so it sounds like a typical adaptive computing kind of thing. Customer pain point,
Yep.
let's make this, let's just make it easier.
Exactly.
And get around to doing our work.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's talk about allocation updates, right? You want to periodically get this going and automate it.
Yep.
What's going on there?
Yeah, so with our Moab Allocation Manager, we basically have looked at how users are using it, and one of the things that seems pretty brain dead simple that we were missing was the fact that on some periodic window, our users would have to go in and add more credits to their system, for the different projects that were going on. So we just baked into the product the ability to specify, hey, I know that I typically go in and have to add more credits based on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis. So why don't we just increment or reset that, regardless of how much you used, back to some steady state, So again, just adding more parameters to the system to make it easier for people to get their work done.
So I wanted to ask you about Viewpoint for HPC. Is there something new going on there, a new version or what?
Yeah, so 7.2, what we've done is we've looked at how customers want to use user interface. And a lot of our customers are command line people, but with our Moab Viewpoint portal, we're trying to tackle the administrator as well as the end user use cases. And we've taken a stab at Viewpoint in the past, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from people saying, hey, the use cases are great, but there's some different things here and there that you're doing, whether it's the look and feel, or again, going back to the RPMs, the setup and the configuration that's a little difficult and maybe not as pleasant as our customers would like. So with 7.2, I think our customers in the industry will see that it's much easier to use, it looks a lot nicer, and really building a foundation for those customers that like using UIs.
So has it come to the point where you can really do the whole deal through the Viewpoint interface and not have to do command line, or you're not always like switching back and forth?
Yeah,
what's that?
Well, no, I mean we want the power users and the power administrators to be able to drop down to the config files, to be able to drop down into events, and be able to use Perl or Python to to grab what they need quickly. So we still expect that to be the major use case, but we're seeing a growing need, especially as HPC becomes a needed type of technology set in business to stay relevant. Commercial sites maybe not be as willing and likely to drop down to the command line as maybe a research lab would be. So.